Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So today is a day where I have nothing to review. My packages with the stuff that I intended to review are currently delayed. What can you do? And I actually have reviewed almost everything that I have in stock. I do want to do a top coat review at some point, but I have more top coats coming in. I wanted to do a Hobby NEO review, but I realized I don't even have that many. So at this point, I don't really know what to do, but I had a stroke of genius. One of my first shorts that I actually put out was cleaning and disassembling my Iwata NEO airbrush. It was like 20 seconds. It was a time lapse of me disassembling and cleaning it, and then I think reassembling it as well. That got a lot of views. That has almost 2,000 views right now. So not for the views that I'm doing this, but it seems like you guys actually really want to know how to disassemble an airbrush and clean it. It's actually a lot easier than you might think. So I'm thinking we should just go and do that. Not much more has to be said. My airbrush was actually already disassembled because I had taken everything apart after the Model Air review. So it's all disassembled right now, but I actually think that's a good thing because disassembling is not super hard, and I'll talk about that as well. But no more pretense. Let's go do it. Okay, so here we are. This is my Iwata NEO airbrush. It's a really nice beginner airbrush. It's less than $100 and it has served me really well. It is a dual action gravity fed airbrush, and I really enjoy it. I think dual action gravity feds are kind of the industry standard right now. Siphon feds are fine, and they actually have, I think, more paint storage, but I just like this one. It's what I had at the time. So, other than the airbrush, what you'll need are a few things. One is I just got a normal paintbrush tip here, took it off the thing, and now I can, do some really fine detail work with it. It's not super clean, but it does the job. This actually, so let me backtrack a little bit. I actually got a cleaning kit from Iwata. This is a free manual that comes at like Hobby Lobby and stuff. And we'll go over some of the steps in here, but I actually got the cleaning kit, which came with this and with this. These are both super helpful because this is how you safely get your nozzle, which is this part right here. And I'll go over the parts in a minute, but the nozzle is this little itty bitty part right here. That's how you get it off, is with this wrench right here. Now you can use a normal wrench, but I just really like this. It's a nice safe way, and you don't lose it when it gets twisted off. So, and if everything would just stop rolling. This is actually a flosser. I got a pack of like 100 of these on Amazon for like $8. Really, really helpful. Those small bristles right there really get into the nooks and crannies, and I really, really like it. Anyway, in terms of cleaners, I actually don't use any big name airbrush cleaners. I use acetone, spray gun lacquer thinner, and for acrylics I use water. Hot water is ideal, but in my experience it's not like a super necessity. Hot water is for when you just have fresh acrylic paint on your stuff, but if it's all dried and such, acetone, it's going to be your best friend. I have these small little bottles that I fill up every once in a while with my solvents, and I would highly recommend getting a couple of those because they're really, really convenient and helpful. So I will link everything that I have just mentioned down below, but let's get into the anatomy of the airbrush. So this is the cup. This is where you put all your paint. As you can see, there's some dried in there. Like I said, right after the review, I just disassembled it, took it apart, and went to fuck to bed. This is the cap, I believe. Yeah, this is the cap. I don't know. I mean, I don't exactly know what everything does. I just know how to clean it and basically what it is. Don't know what this part is called. This is definitely something that you need to make sure is very squeaky clean. But I had been soaking that overnight in water, as I did with my 0.35 millimeter nozzle. And geez, I don't want to lose this, so I'm gonna get a good grip on it. This is my 0.35 millimeter nozzle. I'm actually going to switch to a 0.5 in the near future, so I can review some Odenkon paints. But for now, while my packages are still getting here, this is what we got. Now this is the main body of the airbrush, and I'm not going to go over every single piece because you do not need to really disassemble every single piece to clean your airbrush after a day of spraying. Most people think you do. I used to. That's how I fucked up many airbrushes, funny enough. But now that I've learned how to do such a thing, I do not fully disassemble anymore because that's just not needed. This is the needle, very, very delicate piece of hardware. You do not want to get this bent in any way, or else you can suffer some serious malfunctions and paint mishaps with your airbrush. So be very careful when you're messing with any of this stuff, because if you damage any of it, you break the threads, bend the needle, boom, your airbrush needs to get repaired with new parts. So let's move on to cleaning it. So the first thing I like to do, of course, is soak the pieces. But once I'm done with that, and the last tool, this is from an old airbrush. It's actually an airbrush needle, and I bent the end here as a hook so I can scrape out paint and such really finely. Yeah, it's a very, very useful tool. And if you have old airbrushes lying around, I would highly recommend it. Or you have needles that you fucked up in the past, like I said, highly recommend it. So first thing I like to do is to get the little mini brush here, get my acetone, put it into a little cup. And then dunk my little brush here. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go right in here and just scrub that part out. And so if there's anything coming out on that little brush, you know you gotta go in for another round. Luckily, I actually did a little bit of scrubbing not too long ago, so it's looking pretty good. And then you go from the top as well. Now, you do not want to soak your airbrush in any of your solvents overnight or even for an hour, because then you could accidentally dissolve the seals of your airbrush and paint's going to be seeping all over the place. All this stuff is good for a short time, but not in the long term. So don't ever think that you can just go soaking everything in solvents to avoid doing all this manual labor, all right? So, I don't know why I'm out of breath. Give me a minute. So, scrubbed up, nice. Brush is coming out clean, so we can actually move on to the next section. And that next section would be the nozzle. Do the exact same thing, soak your little brush, and then right in the hole, right past the threads, you just want to do that. Scrubby, scrub, scrub. Give it a little twist. Again, this was soaking in water, so I'm pretty confident, yep, that's going to come out nice and clean. Now the things that I'm already done cleaning, I like to just set to the side. And they say not to use Q-tips, and I do fully agree with that on most cases, but if you have some really nice, tightly woven Q-tips, little dip in acetone, get some of that excess off, and that does help clean out the little canal right here. Whoop, little canal right there. There are little fibers and such that can get into your airbrush, but you just have to be a little bit careful. See, look at that. Clean, clean, clean. All right, so now the main body of the airbrush is done. At this point, you do not need to do anything else. So now that that stuff is done, we can move on to the other sections. So, going to the cap here, you can see there's some paint lurking right there. So now that we already have a Q-tip soaked in acetone, we can just twist that all around. That works really well. Look at that, came all out. And if I can get it on camera, look at that. Nice and clean. I do have a dent in there. I did get a new cap. I just have to bring it downstairs. But yeah, whoop, focus, focus. Look at that. Nice and clean. Now for this section, most of the time, the inside doesn't get dirty, but you can see there's a little bit of paint right there on the end. So again, just taking our acetone soaked Q-tip, just going over the top there, get all that excess paint off. And if it is too dirty, feel free, soak it up again. Just go around. All right. And look at that, nice and clean. And then the inside barely gets dirty. Like I said, I've been airbrushing for months and months now. Not a super long time, but months enough. And it barely gets dirty, so that's all good to go too. Now, if we're moving on to the paint cup right here, again, take some of that acetone, just go around, scrub everything down. Now, the water and stuff was mostly for explanatory purposes because this acetone is really going to be what we need. And look at that. Let me just get around the inside here. And look at that. Paint comes out. Squeaky clean bowl. All right, so last thing is the needle. Now, cleaning the needle, again, is very, very important that you do it correctly. So, what I like to do is take my paper towel, fold it, and then fold it again like this. And then I will take some acetone, or my solvent of choice. Just go right along here, laying down a nice strip. And then when you're cleaning it, you go from the base that does not have a tip and you slide upward, okay? So take it by the base here. Just slide upward. And see the paint already starting to come off? You do not want to bend that tip. I am dead serious. If you need to, twirl it as you pull it through. Put some pressure down. And sometimes I've noticed there is some staining on it. If you really need to, get a little manual effort in there. But yeah, this is generally what you do. Just be nice, slow, careful. And if you do need to soak this part because it's all metal, go for it, 100%. All right, that's good for now. So, needle's all clean, and so is the rest of the airbrush. So we can actually get to reassembling it. Let me just show you how I like to reassemble. This is all preference, I might add. This is generally based on, you know, how you're supposed to do it. But again, most of this is just kind of what I've learned from other YouTubers and the Iwata handbook. So the first thing put on is the nozzle right here. So first I just started off with just a little twist to get the threads going. Ooh, little twist. Get the threads going hard at this angle on camera. Jesus. There we go. And then with your Iwata wrench, just slot that in. And you turn until it's nice and firm, not any further. Oh, you feel that resistance? Boom, done. Do not really don't go crazy trying to tighten it, because that is how you break threads, and boom, that's the end of your airbrush. All right, last part on the front, it's gonna be this little cap here. Again, you just twist that on, and then I always like to just put the cup on. All right, so now this part right here, you loosen it a little bit, take your needle, and you very, very carefully slide it on in. Push it as far as it will go. And then if you see the needle poking out there, you know it's all the way there, and you tighten this back piece. After that, simply put this on here, and boom, you have now reassembled your Iwata NEO airbrush. I hope that this was a helpful video. It was a little bit long, a little bit drawn out, but again, I really do hope that this is something that helps you guys take apart your airbrush and clean it a little bit more effectively. Anything I did with the acetone can always be substituted for the water or the lacquer thinner, but the same rule applies. Do not soak any of your parts overnight in any sort of solvents unless you know for a surefire fact that your O-rings on the airbrush can handle it, okay? I didn't go over in this video because it was getting a little bit long, but this Iwata airbrushing user guide is fantastic, and so are their cleaning kits. So if you have a chance to get either of these, I would definitely do so. All right. Have fun, builders. Have a better day, and I love you guys. See ya.